The following presentation in this video are personal viewpoints of the speaker and do not reflect official policy or views of the Department of Defense or any of the U.S. military services. Welcome back to Shoot, Move, Communicate, where we provide training for military members to be fit for the fight in life, namely to be physically, mentally, and spiritually prepared for the violence of combat and tackling obstacles in everyday life. I'm Chris Reardon, a U.S. Marine, and today we're going to be covering the fourth of 6 videos regarding the physical and mental stress of combat that a warrior will likely face as relayed from LtCol Grossman's book On Combat, of which the content in this video is heavily referred to either through quotes or paraphrases. Today we're going to be discussing the ability to cope with the stresses of combat by mentally preparing for the violence of combat, undergoing stress inoculation training, usable tactical breathing, and participating in tactical debriefs. So I hope you join us in on this important conversation. As a member of one of the elite gun clubs that serve others, our concern is to act in chaotic situations. To do that, we must be a bedrock of calm. When the world is falling apart around you, you can be that rock that others anchor themselves to. Yes, that's correct. The first essential component, however, to dealing with this combat stress is to be forewarned. You see, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. You might have heard that before, but it's true. When you are warned about something, you can more easily control the stress you receive. If you spend your life in a denial that something bad may happen, and it does, then you can be seriously psychologically harmed. However, if you have mentally prepared yourself to face uncertainty and danger, you will cope with the stress much better. You should mentally prepare yourself to potentially be injured seriously or see fellow unit members be injured or killed. Furthermore, you should think through various ethical dilemmas you may face and the potential reality of seeing ugly things such as death, destruction, civilians be harmed, etc. In particular, it is important to be mentally prepared for having to make the decision to kill should you have to. LtCol Grossman amplifies this by remarking, "It is largely a 20th century affection, a modern self-inflicted psychic wound, to believe that you will be mentally destroyed or emotionally harmed by the act of killing in lawful combat. I am convinced, based on interviews with hundreds of men and women who have had to kill, that if you tell yourself that killing will be an earth-shattering traumatic event, then it probably will be. But if you do the rationalization acceptance ahead of time, if you prepare yourself and immerse yourself in the lore and the spirit of mature warriors past and present, then the lawful legitimate use of deadly force does not have to be self-destructive or traumatic event. When you prepare yourself for killing prior to the event, you are less likely to respond in panic, more likely to deter your opponent, and less likely to take life inappropriately. You're also better prepared to live with the situation afterwards and less likely to take your own after the event. After mentally preparing oneself for the stress of combat, the next best thing you could do to prepare yourself is to basically physically undergo stress inoculation. Now, this is conducted in various ways during military training to simulate realistic combat conditions as much as possible. One form of inoculation occurs in force-on-force scenarios using paint-filled, gunpowder-propelled plastic bullets. I've been through this type of training, and I'll tell you something, these hurt when you're hit, but it takes a bit of the surprise and fear of getting hit in the future, along with teaching military personnel to apply appropriate risk-taking measures without exposing oneself unnecessarily. You see, it's easy to be a hero when just blank fire is being utilized and, take those Medal of Honor runs, but it's a whole other thing to maneuver against the possibility of even probability faced by that sting of that paintball right in the face, you know what I mean? Now, other forms of stress inoculation include night training, OC spray in the face, live fire events, cold weather training, helicopter dunker training, sparring, etc. Ultimately, when training in stressful situations, one gets stronger and more adapted to future stressful situations that will allow oneself to keep a strong mind in the midst of danger. Now that we've talked about what to do in preparation for the battle, let's talk about what you can do to calm your nerves right before, during, or after a dangerous situation by using tactical breathing. To understand how this works, we could look at basic human physiology and divide our body's nerve systems into two parts: the autonomic nervous system, ANS, and the somatic nervous system, the SNS. Now, an example of using the somatic nervous system would be to move your arm around. Now, however, there are functions in your body you can't control, such as your heart rate. These functions are regulated by the ANS. That being said, Breathing and blinking are two actions that actually are both autonomic, but also could be brought under the control of the somatic nervous system. This is an interesting thing to take into mind, because breathing in particular is that bridge between your conscious control and the parts of your body that can't be controlled. Now, if you remember from Combat Stress Effects, part 1, there are two parts of the autonomic nervous system. You got the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, the PNS. By controlling your breathing, you control your body's automated response of breathing heavy during a dangerous situation. This in turn controls the SNS response, which would essentially be your body's fight or flight response. In turn, controlling the breathing then regulates one's heart rate. So you can essentially pull your heart rate down. This in turn allows one to think more clearly, keep better control of fine motor skills, and overall enhance one's senses when enabling better shooting, rational decision making, and productive communication. The mechanics of tactical breathing are honestly pretty simple. One takes a deep breath through the nose for a slow count to 4, which allows air to and basically expands in your lungs. One then holds for a count of 4. Following this, you empty your breath for a count of 4. That's a whole cycle. Do this about 4 to 5 times, or as long as you need to get your heart rate and your nerves down in a difficult, dangerous situation. Tactical breathing can be used right before an anticipated dangerous situation to get your heart, your mind, and your nerves right. During the situation or right after. For example, you're in a stack at the door, you're about to clear a room. Tactical breathing is going to get your mind to a place of calm where you don't overreact to a situation. You want to pull that heart rate down to low condition red or high condition yellow. This simple technique is going to keep you from losing your cool when it otherwise can cause you or somebody else to get injured or killed. Now, once you're on the other side of a dangerous situation, the next long-term step to coping with the stress is to participate in or help facilitate a tactical debriefing. This is a discussion that helps warriors come to terms with what happened, learn any critical lessons for the future, and basically gain closure from events in battle. Ideally, the group involved gets together with unit leaders and members. The debriefing is when memory loss, distortion, irrational guilt, self-blame, relief of being alive, and other matters are sorted out to restore morale and the unit's integrity. A simple way to look at this is that pain shared is pain divided. We mourn our losses, which is important to deal with our emotions and find healing. Warrior societies throughout the ages have found it appropriate to mourn and even shed tears for the fallen. On the other hand, joy shared is joy multiplied. We must celebrate the valor, sacrifice, and professionalism of our fellow comrades. If we focus on the good parts and bring honor to it, we can live with the harshness of war and continue to participate as necessary. Choosing to focus on what was good allows us to keep our emotions in check and survive not only the battle we just fought, but future battles. This is how we make peace with painful memories. This is how we learn to have grace under pressure. Now you may be thinking that you yourself don't need a debriefing. However, keep in mind that this debriefing is for your fellow warriors as well, and they fought on your left and right. We have an obligation to be there for them to help them process the battle as well. In closing, we have discussed the importance of being mentally prepared for combat, undergoing stress inoculation training, using tactical breathing, and conducting tactical debriefs. These are tried and true methods for being a battle-hardened veteran who others can rely on in combat and who live fruitful and productive lives afterwards. In the next part of this series, we're going to be discussing some of the psychological effects you might experience. But until then, remember, land of the free because of the brave.